What is going on, kings and queens of this wonderful wonderland that we call YouTube? We are back once again with another review. This time, we are going to be talking about what I will refer to as a heartbreaker on my top 5 games of 2016 list, and one that only got an honorable mention, sadly, The Last Guardian. Before we get too deep into it, I just feel like I need to clarify and really drive home the fact that I do really love this game, and I did enjoy it. But you know, the fact is, when I made the list, I really ran into a roadblock, ran into a problem. You know, I said this, and this game gets on there, and then when I filled up all the spots, I realized, oh crap, now, you know, where do I put Last Guardian and what do I take off? And as I stated in the last video, I couldn't justify swapping anything, which is why we're here. But I just want you to know that I'm as torn about it as I was making the original list and filming that video as I am here today. So let's get into it. If you don't know anything about The Last Guardian, I'm going to make this video as much spoiler-free experience as I can, because I think it's really one that if you're interested in it, you should definitely check it out. So I'm going to try and handle this video with care. But anyway, The Last Guardian is a spiritual successor to Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. And it's really a game more or less about friendship. Specifically the friendship or the bond between the main protagonists of the game. There's one little boy that you play as, and this big winged cat-like creature named Trico, and the game is really more or less of them figuring out where they are and where they need to go, and kind of that journey from beginning to end. And you really kind of see that the transformation between the two, because they kind of start out as more or less acquaintances, like we're in this together, but we don't really know each other, to more or less becoming best friends by the end. So let's start the review off with some good things, because I know if you're like me, you like your dessert before your vegetables, am I right? So something that really stuck out in my mind about The Last Guardian is the visual aesthetic experience. One thing about Ico and Shadow of the Colossus is that it really creates a world that no matter how big you are, you know, you could be as small as an ant or as big as a house, you still feel small regardless of your actual size. Everything about the world is grand. Everything about the world has a level of scale and just impossibleness to it. You're like, there's no way I can get up there, or there's no way I can jump that, or there's no way I can do this, that, or something else. And that tied into, you know, the way the world interacts with itself, the way the sunlight hits something, or the way that the wind reacts to the grass or the trees and the overall textures of things in the world. That all swirls together to create a memorable and unforgettable experience in gaming, which is probably part of the reason we look upon Ico and Shadow of the Colossus so fondly, is just the overall experience that the game enwraps you in. You feel like you're the main character and you're not holding a controller, but you're living that experience. And I've said before, I really do crave that, and I really do look for that in my games. And this is no exception. But it's just the overall grandeur of everything around you that engulfs you in the experience that really made it stick out for me. Now, I know with me saying that that is the only thing that sticks out in my mind as a good thing, that's gonna rub some of you guys the wrong way. But if you know anything about Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, and even Last Guardian, maybe you're somebody that's here just to see what I have to say about it, but if you've experienced it, you probably know exactly what I'm saying and how something that simple and quickly, gone over, can carry that much weight. Because the thing about it is what I just said does carry a lot of weight in this game. Because that really is kind of the sum of the experience, more or less. So now on to the not so fun stuff. The stuff that really kind of left me wondering about The Last Guardian and wondering about its place in the countdown. Let me just say that upon hearing about the game and looking at the game and everything, because I love Ico and Shadow of the Colossus so much, I figured right off the bat that it was going to be a shoo-in for Game of the Year for me. And there was two things specifically that made me kind of eat my words and second guess myself a little bit. Primarily, the first one is the overall control scheme. While it's not a deal breaker for the game and something that I could overlook, I did still find tedious and annoying. And what made it so is that excuse me. What made it that way is that throughout, some of the puzzles and the situations that you in Trico find yourself in, you depend on Trico to react properly. He needs to jump on something, he needs to lean against something so you can climb up him and reach it and whatever. You're finding an escape or solving a puzzle for that room depends on what Trico does, and he doesn't necessarily respond some of the way that he should. I mentioned the whole being engulfed in your gaming experience to where it feels real, and Trico definitely does, in more ways than one. Specifically in this instance, he kind of reminds me of a stubborn pet, kind of an untrained dog, where instead of listening to your commands and going to the specific spot where he needs to react to something, he'll walk around the room not listen to you and go off sniffing a flower or something, which kind of makes it um, tedious and kind of annoying. And I found myself getting frustrated with the fact that Trico wouldn't listen to me, which kind of made some of the puzzles and situations that I found myself in probably last longer than they should have, because when Trico doesn't do what he's supposed to do, it kind of made me second guess myself as to maybe that's not the way out. Maybe I'm not supposed to use it. Maybe there's something else. So I would spend a large amount of time circumnavigating the room trying to see if there was a hidden switch or a hidden pathway or something I was missing, only to find out that I did need Trico the whole time. But as I said, it was little flaws like that, as one case for disappointment for me in that game. But it wasn't something that kind of wrecked the game for me or broke the game for me. It was just something that I think required a lot of patience to sit there and hope that it worked, and then when eventually it did, you were like, Trico, you're stupid, I'm stupid, let's just move on to the next thing. With that being said, though, the big thorn that is stuck in my side since I completed The Last Guardian was the pacing issues with the game. Within the story, within the situations and stuff. Now, in saying that, I can say that I have beaten the game in 15 hours or less. I got that achievement, as is customary if you've played the remakes of Shadow of the Colossus and Ico on PlayStation 3. You know that they come with speedrunning trophies, and I got one for The Last Guardian. The reason why this was such a shock was because the game felt so slow. It felt like it was the longest period of my life. I didn't get the exact timestamp on it, but let's just say for the sake of the video, I finished it in 12 hours. It was the longest 12 hours I've ever spent playing a video game. And it honestly was a surprise because it felt a lot longer than 12 hours. Primarily because the game started off slow, it stayed slow, and it did end on a high note. I'm not going to tell you what the ending was, but just know that it did end with a high note. You know, basically it was a roller coaster where you're like, okay, we're fine, you know, we've got the rhythm of the game. And then it, you know, surprised me with some breathtaking moments, and then it was back to the monotonous, slow, chipping away thing. And then at the end, it was exciting. So really, the game was more or less, I guess for lack of a better term, boring throughout the majority of the 12 hours. It was boring for 11 of the 12 hours, I would say, and the 12th hour was exciting, and then the game was over. And the only question on my mind was, why couldn't the whole game be that exciting? And I knew, you know, my opinion is probably different than everybody else's in the house, because I've played Ico, I've played Shadow of the Colossus, I know what I'm getting into with these games, but it still was boring to me. And I knew that I was on to something more or less bad, because I had my girlfriend and my mom playing it with me because I said, this game is going to be big, it's going to be beautiful, it's going to be breathtaking and exciting. You got to check this out with me. And they both kind of came to the same conclusion, is that all this was? And they kind of felt like they had sold their soul for 12 hours of nothing, They just felt like they've lost 12 hours of their life. With that being said, I am fully aware that in the spectrum of Ico being more puzzle-based and slow, and Shadow of the Colossus being a lot more action-packed and epic, I would say that Last Guardian falls kind of in between the two, more so on the side of Ico and being puzzle-based. Basically, the entire game was moving from escape room to escape room. You had to find your way out only to work your way into another puzzle until you got to a place where it picked up only to knock you back into another monotonous puzzle. And that was my problem, is that because of Trico and because of the world and because of the situation, I expected it, and I wanted it to be a lot more Shadow of the Colossus-esque, and a lot more epic, I guess, in that sort of nature. So I guess there was a little bit of disappointment there. But it's a tough call, There is a lot that I love about the game, and there's just that thing that I can't get past. And I guess when it comes down to the nature in that game of the game, and kind of that if I should play it type thing, I would say that the experience is going to change for everybody. And if it's something that you're interested in, go for it, because I would recommend it, because I think the breathtaking parts, even though they're far and in between, are there, and they do add something, and the ending definitely does. But at the end of the day, it's going to be an experience for and by the individual. And opinions are going to vary. You may look at it and say this thing's a piece of crap and enjoy it a lot less than even I did. Or you might say this game is flawless and it might be on your top 5 list or top 10 list or whatever. Unlike me. So I guess if I had to rate The Last Guardian, sorry, my camera got a little wonky there. If I had to rate it, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Primarily because, like I said, the game deserves a lot of love and a lot of respect for the good qualities, but just because of the minor control issues, but mostly the pacing issues of the story and moving from situation to situation, it just kind of knocked it out of contention for me. But I do give it an 8 out of 10. And in closing, I would say that if you've ever been interested in the game, or it looks like something you're curious about, definitely check it out. Don't let anything kind of sway you the other direction, because this is just my opinion, and you might have something completely different. But if you like puzzle games, if you like mystery games mixed with a bit of majesty, definitely The Last Guardian is worth a look. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I salute you. And until next time, remember, we're all mad here.